Hey,
Hello,
everybody.
and how you doing? This is beautiful timing. We during the intro, we dropped Dan off the internet. We decided that we'd had enough of Dan already, and we're like,
Right,
"No, Dan, you can't come on the show. Sorry."
right, right,
Uh,
right. I think we both said, "What? What just happened?"
our faces were like, "I'm sure Dan was here a second ago.
Right,
Did we
right.
imagine this?"
Yeah.
No, I'm back.
Well, yay, you're
I'm
back.
super excited to have Dan Allford on today, who is. In fact, Dan, I was going to give you an intro, but do you want to give yourself an intro? And because I'm definitely going to mess it up, so and I'm not going to do yourself duty, sir. Do you want to give yourself a quick intro, please?
Yeah, sure. So I've been a dev and engineering manager in various various versions of those kind of roles for the last 10 years. Working on lots of cloud-based stuff, and so for the last 5 years, I've been kind of flitting between hands-on technical stuff and technical leadership.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Which kind of leads us into the article. Really, like that's kind of why the article was written. I guess is you are moving in between those two fields quite a lot.
yeah, and so I wrote the article. It was based on my first steps into my first time in a head of engineering role. So
Brilliant.
this was where I was, I was feeling completely out of my depth myself in this new role, but then helping to bring people through from never having led a team, never having mentored people, never been responsible for the other people's outputs, and then helping them on their journey. So both drowning myself and also helping people that were drowning.
Right.
That's a different.
Okay,
That's a,
I'm going to pause your drowning for a second, and we'll do we'll fill us in with our pre-flight checks, just so we can let people join in because we will I suspect we'll get carried away. I know I will because
yeah.
I haven't spoken to you in too long, and it's usually over beers. So
We should have beers now. It's too early,
should
but
do. I mean, it's not that it's 3 o'clock our time. It's all good. I
I
mean,
would.
if
Oh, I get. Well, yeah. So, well, for me, it's 10 a.m., but it's all good. Like it's 5 o'clock somewhere, right?
it's always 5 o'clock somewhere. I mean, if it's 5 o'clock in France right now, we're all good.
Right. Exactly.
We'll do our pre-flight checks then. So if you're not following us on Twitter, you totally should. It's at Chef, where you can find all of our social stuff, things like this post, where basically advertise on
Yep.
there, and if you want to see any of our DevRel streams, any of the cool content we're putting out, our webinars, that is the best place to keep get in touch with us there.
Yes.
This is my Twitter. Notice this is my Twitter, not Dan's Twitter. We'll come to that in a second.
Right.
This is my Twitter. I'm usually putting out chef stuff at the moment, so there's a really interesting. I had a question from one of our users about how do we pin some cookbooks. I've got a video on YouTube / Twitter at the moment about how to use policy files and cookbooks and version pinning. Maybe we'll do a stream at some point on how the heck to do version pinning, because that's a bit of a tricky one actually, and why downstream dependencies having tight dependencies is it's like it's a bad idea. This is Kyle's Twitter. If you haven't noticed, she's Black Girl CTO because she is a CTO. It's cool.
Yes.
I thought you had frozen then for a second in like victory pose. It was good. What do you post about Kaya?
I generally post chef stuff, repost chef stuff. Right now it's kind of boring, but it's all good because like my goal for 2022 is to put out some banging content. So like
Nice.
stay tuned.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff coming there. And you'll notice I'm just going to leave it blank for now. Dan, you haven't got Twitter. What's going on?
Oh, why? But why, Dan?
Yeah, I used to have Twitter, but I never really put any content out there. I just used to read it, and I found that it didn't make me happy, so I just got rid of it. I found it was yeah, a bit of a echoing cesspool. Cesspool. So
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, they always go like, "Oh, your Twitter stream is the people you follow," and I'm like, "Well, I follow the people I like, who I find interesting." And then if something bad happens, the entire world looks like it's imploding, doesn't it?
It
yeah,
really does.
Like something big happens, and then all of your friends and all the people you're following, you're like, "Oh my god, what?" Like, 'cause you get this, it's this echo like feedback thing, don't you? So it's then like it's pretty bad, and then you go on Twitter, and you're like, "Oh, it's really bad. Oh my god!" And then you scroll a bit further, and this is the doom scroll, isn't it?
Yeah.
and also it turns out that a lot of people that I like and respect in one realm are not necessarily people that I like and respect in every context.
No,
It's
and I think
kind
that's a really healthy way to see it, isn't it? It's like like sometimes professionally, you can really respect people, or from an engineering perspective, I like the work you're putting out,
of,
but I do not want to see you in the pub ever.
Yeah, it's like Don't Meet Your Heroes, right?
you
Oh
know,
yeah, yeah, right.
well, so being an engineering manager, that is an interesting perspective because you might have some of your direct reports on Twitter. Like, have you ever had a situation where you had a direct report on Twitter or you followed a direct report on Twitter and you were surprised? Let's just
Surprise! That's the right way of putting it. Have you ever gone? What?
right, like who do I hire? Oh my goodness. Clutch pearls.
I mean, yeah, there's definitely people that manage to hold it together, and underneath they're just crazy, right? But maybe
Oh
that's not
yeah,
the I do think that, like, if people, I think there's not enough kind of just accepting that different people are have different thoughts, and as
right.
long as you don't bring them to work, and you keep that kind of separated, like, I don't have any problem generally, as long as it's within, like, the realms of civility, like, people can.
Right.
Yeah, I think there was I think so. 37 Signals had this, where it got a little bit political, and they were like, "Don't bring any politics to work at all," and they kind of went the other way. And as a result, they're hiring their entire engineering department, like
Mhm.
rehiring, because everyone was just like, "Well, that's just not how the world works." Like, if you're like, I mean, Kaya and I joke about me always tweeting about Brexit, or we're always reading about Brexit because it's it's still fresh, it's full fresh weight. Um, but actually, like, yeah, it's hard to agree with those people, and you suddenly see a lot of people who don't agree with you. And you're like, wow. Then when you bring it to work, you do sometimes just need to vent to people,
Yeah.
um, and
And you
having
spend a lot of time.
some amount of political um, capital at work is quite helpful, I think.
Well, yeah, you want to bring you want people to bring their whole selves
Yeah,
to work, right? And you can't leave, particularly in tech, where a lot of our decisions are intertwined with politics. Like, for
right.
example, accessibility of a web app. To what extent should you just worry about the fines that you're going to get, and to what extent should you worry about making sure this website is accessible because it's the right thing to do? That's a political decision.
Oh, totally. So
Oh,
one of
really?
the so all government websites need a Welsh version. It's in law. I think it came into effect within the last 2 years. Like, there needs a Welsh accessible version, so you should be able to switch the wording on all your websites to Welsh, um, reasonably easy with that language packs. If you're using the right sort of generators and that kind of stuff, you should be able to just do it. But it's more work, and everyone was like, "We'll just get fined. It's fine. We'll just get fined." And you're like, oh, that's like, hundreds of thousands of people who your website is that. Yes, it's a language, and they 99.999% of people in Wales do speak English. But it's not. That's not the point, really. It's the intent behind it.
Yeah, to be inclusive.
Yeah, exactly. I saw a tweet this morning about talking about inclusivity, about all of the gender, what a gender tick box should look like. So, like when you're selecting your gender, and it was like a fully inclusive list, and it just scrolled, and I was like,
Yeah.
I think that was like so it's male, female, and then just like 15 extra things underneath, and I was like,
Okay.
I can see. I mean, I'm not going to disagree with it, but it really did make me think for a second about like how do you make that good UX UI?
Right. Right. I guess you have to do it
Because
like the countries
that's
or
reality,
states,
right?
something like that.
So yeah,
Have to make it scroll. But
yeah, it was the whole thing.
so I really think it's awesome when I do see like really inclusive like gender options. It's just a shift in our way of thinking, and I think that's great that folks are embracing that, and that really does come from having diverse and inclusive workspaces in tech.
Yeah, I think so. I think some people it's harder to kind of be inclusive because that's not where they are mentally. So it's going to be more of an effort for some people, and then for some people it's just naturally like you see lots of people who are minorities and that kind of stuff. So I know when I started working in Birmingham, I was like, well, I'm very privileged because I now like get to work, get to just to get to be around more than just white people, because I grew up in a very white city, where like I wouldn't call it a backwater. I think backwater is probably like underselling it slightly, but it isn't like multicultural, diverse, inclusive city like that Birmingham is, because you end up with a bigger city. You end up with all these like lots of I don't really want to call the word minority, but like just lots of people who are different to you, and it's really interesting. I was on the tram one day and I was like, this is pretty cool. Like this is really nice. This is how life is. These other people who also exist.
Yeah.
And I think that then goes into the way software is built as well.
Yep.
Like the people who are seeing other people who don't look like them on a regular basis, then go, oh, these other people exist too.
I mean, it's not just it's not just that as well, right? Like it's hard. Just it's really hard to put yourself into other people's shoes, and it's always easier to solve problems that you have. So it's not necessarily about trying to solve, like if you're doing like taking accessibility testing again, how can you bring people who actually live that life every day, and because there are websites out there that are actually incredibly accessible to people with screen readers, but when I've tried to like accessibility test them, I've found the website to be completely unusable, because like this was when I was first kind of using a screen reader, and I couldn't basically I couldn't follow basically couldn't use the tech, right?
Right.
So I'm like I'd be trying to super simplify things, because I was like, well, there's no way that somebody can navigate this website on a screen reader.
Oh, right, yeah.
Actually, it was built really well, and when people who were using screen readers every day went on that website, they listened to it at 10 times the speed. And it's just, it's one of those things where I couldn't put myself into that mental space of somebody with that disability, but not the disability, but the experience of using that technology. And Yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't really just
No, like I think that's a really interesting perspective because like when you do like when folks who don't have those kinds of maybe this word alternate abilities. There we go. Alternate abilities.
There we go.
Um,
Well,
then
I know
you
that's
don't
perfect
really
because if
know.
you've ever listened to anybody with anybody who's blind or partially sighted, and then you listen to them listen to a screen reader like 10 times, they're like, and to us, it sounds like, and then
Yeah,
and they'll get all the words and they'll understand everything. And I
right.
can't get that, but partially sighted people have learnt to read / listen that quickly.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
I think it's perfect, right?
that is. It really, really is. So, yes, I think that is great as well. So let's get into his article.
Yeah, let me just
Like, I think your
drop
article.
down the your Medium link because since you've been on, since I've asked you to be on, you've already written another article. So we may get you back because there's an empathic code,
yeah.
which is I think an interesting topic we've kind of almost skirted around today. So maybe we'll get you back in a few months, 2 or 3 months, and
Yeah.
we'll see how
Yeah,
that goes.
let's talk about
Or
that.
you may decide to just never come back, and you're like, damn. Yeah, thanks very much for joining me. Let me invite me on, but I just can't. No.
Never again. For everybody on LinkedIn, I did post the link to the article there, and actually, we also posted it to the chat, so you can go on
Yeah.
ahead and check that out. It is great. Like, let's dig in though.
Yeah,
So,
and so also welcome to everybody in the chat as well today. So I've got a few viewers, which is nice.
yes. Oh,
Um,
Tom says, "Holla."
yeah, we've got the Tom in the house. It's
Hey,
good. It's good. It's good.
Tom. Mm.
We yeah. I mean, Kai, do you want to start with your first question? Because I think I want to dig into Dan's running of his local meetups at some point. But I think we'll start with your first, and then we'll
Okay.
run around back to mine.
Sure. So Dan A. um, so I really did enjoy reading your article. One of the things I would like to touch on is what do you think the mental shift is from being an individual contributor to a leader in the tech space? And so you also had like, I'm sure you can speak from personal experience because you've also done this transition, but also how you help others transition with the knowledge that you currently have.
Yeah. So I think one of the big transitions in moving from the IC track to the leadership track is that you need to adjust your own like personal sense of self-worth in some sense. Like, I think a lot of engineers find their sense of self-worth in, I've done this piece of work, it's gone out into the world, and it's out there delivering value, and that's I solved that problem with my
Mhm.
own brain power, and um, I can see the output from day to day of the
Yeah.
Right.
problems that I've solved. And I think that leadership is a much longer feedback cycle. You're not going to see results immediately. It could be months, or years, before you've seen something through, and delivered the value. Obviously, you want to kind of try and shorten those feedback cycles and get some kind of way that that you're doing a good job. But
Mhm.
um, it's a very different mindset, right? From I built this thing today to, over the last month, I've really seen a lot of improvement in the way that this team is going about organizing their work or understanding the problem that they're trying to solve, or whatever problem presents itself. And so I think that you can fall into a pattern of feeling unaccomplished
Yeah,
and like you're not really making any progress.
I think we have this sort of interesting problem where I guess it's a thing about moving kind of away from engineering, because Kyra and myself were both devs and ops people in the past, so you have this really nice, like almost an endorphin rush. I finish a ticket, I've got something to
Yes.
production, I've done something. Like that sense of accomplishment is immediate.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, like agile is addictive, or if you're in the US, addicting. But like it's really addictive to like deliver bits of software. So like
Mm-hmm.
getting off of that endorphin rush is really hard, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
So what about okay, because in management and in leadership, you kind of have to have like people skills, and it's really important, right? Because you're dealing with folks, you have to deal with like people problems, more so than you would as an individual contributor, and generally, well, actually, there are a few engineers that possess those soft skills. Like, how are you able to teach them, or do you generally pick people who already possess those soft skills that you need for leadership when you're
Yeah. So
tagging folks?
I think there's definitely there's some people that aren't cut out to be tech leaders, right? And I think that that might be because they just don't want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, you shouldn't be a tech leader. If you're not interested in helping people to grow and helping teams to succeed. And one of the other differences about tech leadership is the impact that you can have. So, in a lot of ways, when you're writing code, a lot of the time it doesn't, or at least maybe this is very much my perspective, but the code that you write doesn't matter most of the time, as in like you're not going to really cause any serious harm if you screw it up, or at least
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
trying to create an environment where that's the case. You should be trying to build systems where you're not going to screw it up. And also, most of the time, if you're building business applications or something like that, the worst thing that's going to happen is some rich person loses some money,
Right.
which is not as important as many of the things that you're dealing with as an engineering manager, because you're actually dealing directly with people's livelihoods and
Yeah.
people's mental health. And so I often think that or I think that the decisions that you're making are often much higher impact than the highest impact engineering decisions. Obviously that depends on the domain that you're working in. If you're working in healthcare or something like that, maybe it's not the same.
I was going to mention the like sometimes government departments, you're doing really boring stuff, and then you realize that this impacts tens of thousands of people when you get, and then if you get it wrong, or you get like UX kind of seems a bit like nice to have, like a nice user journey. You're like, yeah, I can click through the buttons 5 times quicker. Really nice. But if that's the difference between someone applying for legal aid and someone not applying for legal aid, and they need to apply for legal aid, and it's going to be life changing without it, then actually you really need that. You really need that really good user journey. So yeah, if you get it wrong, like, it can genuinely affect people. But so like most, like 90% of applications out there, like if you're not working for government or healthcare, I think it's just doesn't cut it, does it really? Like, oh well, I put this widget in the wrong place. Oh, I'll just do another release. It's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Versus in leadership, you could if you do the job wrong, you could really lose people and make it a difficult place to work. It's a lot of pressure
Yeah. Although
because people
I
don't
guess
quit
so,
jobs; they quit managers.
so many people, right? I mean, have you seen that? Have you seen like in your time as of mentoring and other managers kicking you around, that they've been sort of aggressive and not mentoring in the correct way, like wanting to mentor people, but then going about it in a sort of like going about it in the wrong way, and then it actually pushing people away from that company. Have you seen that happen at all?
I think the biggest failure mode that I've seen is not that, but
Okay.
that people just don't bother. Like
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people that definitely don't kind of try to don't make the effort and kind of just think, well, they'll go along, they'll crack on with their work, they'll get stuff done. I might put some pressure on them to get stuff done faster every now and then, but that's like the level of interaction that we'll have. I think that people that are genuinely interested in doing a good job, that is 90% of the battle won when you're talking about mentorship. Like, if you're there and trying your best and you're open-minded and you're listening to people when they give you feedback and stuff like that, and you're trying to drive people forward,
Yeah.
then I think that's you're definitely in the I think that's pretty rare, at least in the companies that I've worked in. I haven't worked in many large tech firms where they probably have more, I assume they have a more established career path. In kind of smaller companies, 100 people and less, it's very much you're promoted, you're in charge of these people, now go and like go be a leader.
Right.
I really like that line in your line in the article about if we parented children like we promote engineers to take lead, just after they've proved themselves to be capable of walking, we will push them into the deep end of a pool, and then my emphasis, and then walk off.
Yeah.
Good
Right.
luck.
Yep.
Like just so like promoting people into the right jobs is kind of almost the end of the journey, you're saying in the article, really, or very near the end of the journey. You've proven yourself. You've got the skills. You kind of understand how this thing should work. Because I like you said that, like if you promote people too early into the role, they don't know how to give feedback. Feedback is super hard. Like my wife's in the other room, and then actually she's taking a course on something very similar to this conversation right now. How to mentor people, and feedback is a really, really hard part of that cycle. How do you give constructive feedback that people can go away and action? Like actionable feedback is super, super hard, and like giving it in a way that isn't going to be seen as like isn't going to push them away. Like, I don't know about you. So engineers to me are very
Sensitive.
Yeah, that's one of the words I was going to use. But you're very proud of the work you're doing. You think you're doing the right thing most of the time, and even very angry people like me are like, well, yeah, I'm doing the right thing. Of course I am. And then you suddenly get this feedback from like the side, and you're like, sorry, I didn't do the right thing there. Like, and it completely blindsides people. So like, I think feedback from both people is super hard. I mean, have you seen feedback like going wrong, or like how do you?
There's a really interesting talk by Dan North
Oh yeah,
about giving feedback. And
So many bands.
yeah,
Dan North gives amazing talks.
yeah, and he talks about different kinds of feedback for different kinds of trust environments. And so if you're in a low trust environment, it could be that you've just started in a role and maybe the last engineering manager was, really, or, whatever the company is set up so that people are absolutely run ragged and, everybody's just clinging on for dear life. Then you see that somebody's doing something wrong, that you consider could be done better, whatever it is, then you can't just jump in and say, don't do that, and be really candid in your feedback, because people are going to have an emotional response to that. They already feel under attack. And what he recommends is what he calls in that kind of environment is what he calls porpoise feedback, which is basically just positive affirmation of good things. Don't mention the bad things at all. Let them make the mistakes. They're going to make them anyway, because if you tell them not to, they're just not going to listen to you. So just tell them the good stuff. Give them positive reinforcement, and then
I see Dan has been a parent before then.
Exactly. That's what that sounds like. Parenting.
Right. It's honestly, it's like trying to well, you're going to do it anyway. So it's that positive reinforcement, like encourage the behaviors you want to see, I guess.
Yeah.
And that goes for a bunch of things, like make the right path the easy path.
Yeah, exactly. But then in some circumstances, that's not the right thing to do, because you're wasting a lot of energy. Like if and also it can get frustrating, right? If I know a better way for if I know a better way for somebody to do something, that person might just want me to tell them. It depends on our relationship. It depends on that person, right? And so sometimes, you have a really good relationship with somebody. You can say, look, I did it this way before, and it works much better. Like, why don't you give it a try? Or don't do that. That's going to, cause all sorts of problems or whatever. And so sometimes you need to be blunt, and sometimes you need to be somewhere in the middle, and that's where I think the talk's called Making a Sandwich, because
it is, yeah.
It's talking about the idea of I don't know how to say it without an expletive. So the idea of making a sandwich as feedback, where you've got like the praise,
Right.
like the meat of the sandwich, which is the critical feedback, and then the praise again.
Yeah,
That's kind of that's one of my favorite ways of at least trying to give feedback. It's like, hey, you're doing this really well. I really enjoy this thing. Also, I hate you. Also, this other thing is really cool.
Yeah.
I don't hate anybody.
Not also I hate.
But slip it in there. And then you've got them on, at least you haven't got them on the back foot from the get-go.
Yeah.
Because you end up getting a rapport going. And I think that's really important for a starter feedback. So if you just come in like a ton of bricks with the feedback that you, let's say you want to pull rank for some reason. Look, I've got the experience in this field. This is my background. I know how to deploy systems, for example. You shouldn't do versioning like this. This is a major version change. You're making a broken change, and then if you don't do this, you'll have a bunch of users who will come and shout at you. I know this from experience, so I'm just going to tell you to not do that now. Also, this other thing is really, really cool. But if you came in with stop doing this thing right now, it really just shocks people. And I think learning how to not shock people is really, really good.
Yeah. I did notice that you mentioned in your article, Dan, about basically, I've heard this term a lot, and I think it's great. But making failure a positive experience. But I also heard you mention that you work in very small companies. So in general, well, I guess I'm gonna kind of sprinkle my opinion on there, but just stop me or give me your opinion afterwards. So it seems to me like it's easier. It has as someone who has started, someone who moonlights as a startup founder and has built a team and wants to encourage, that failure is a learning experience. It seems like it's so much easier to say that when you are a larger company and you've got, you know, some guardrails around you, versus being in a smaller company where folks wear multiple hats, and the resources are a lot leaner, right? Like, how do you encourage a safe space for failure in smaller, more tight knit teams where the out more impactful?
Did you get that, Dan? Dan's connection's having a bit of fun there.
Yeah, so I think can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good. I think we can hear outwards, maybe not that, like you can't hear us maybe a little bit.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I think that trying to create a safe environment in this context is difficult, but the kind of failures that I was particularly thinking about is around not just, you know, when somebody first starts line managing somebody, for example, you don't just throw them in as, okay, now you take care of this person and any problems that they have, you know, now they come to you and you solve them, or you raise them with HR if they're, you know, like, now you're responsible for hiring and firing this whole team. Go have at it. You know, you need to create some kind of situation where that person can kind of dip their foot in. They can start to, you know, line manage somebody, but that person who they're line, you know, the real danger is, you know, if you have a really bad line, you can have it can really cause you a lot of damage. So maybe you start off with skip management meetings with the people that person is line managing, so that if something is going horribly wrong, then, you know, they've still got that kind of, you know, maybe if they're doing weekly one-to-ones, you do fortnightly one-to-ones with the first couple of people that person is line managing, just so that, you know, if things are falling through the cracks, if they don't, you know, if that person is making mistakes, then they've still got the person being managed still has some kind of back channels where they can get their problems addressed. When somebody is going into hiring their first team or hiring the first person, you know, you can get them to run people past. You know, you can be involved in that process and not just say, okay, here's your budget, go off and you know, go off and hire some people, right? You can still have input into that process, or other people, you know, obviously it doesn't have to be, you don't want to make yourself a bottleneck, you know, other people who have experience in doing these sort of things, you can set them up, and you can set them up with people that have been there and done it before.
So correct me if I'm wrong. So we're kind of getting at, like, give them like the person who's sort of starting this journey is, you give them some, like, a subset of all the things to do. So don't always do all the one-to-ones. Don't always do all the hiring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, eventually this person will be like in charge of hiring the whole team. But for now, they'll have input into the process. They won't manage the hiring process, because actually,
good idea.
Like, I have no idea who I'm trying to hire right now. Like, what's the kind of right person I'm trying to hire? Well, I think I know, and do I really know how to do? Like, maybe as a manager, I can't interview people very well, because that's a whole set of other skills where you end up like trying to hire people. I mean, that's a whole other stream about hiring correctly, because hiring is really hard.
It really is.
So, like, maybe that person doesn't do all the hiring, or they just have an input into the process. So that sounds pretty cool. Yeah, kind of ease them into it. Like, I get.
Exactly. Because you know, it really is a completely different. It's more like a career change than a promotion. You know, you start as a junior, you build, you know, small components or whatever, and then you start building systems, and then you build systems of systems, and then you manage people. Like it's not, the rest is very linear and progressive, but then at some point it's kind of just there is a definite step change, and it's just about how can you try and smooth that, how can you, and I don't, it feels in some ways silly saying it, right? All this stuff seems obvious,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, why aren't people doing it then? So that's why I yeah,
I think
it
the
seems
obvious
like.
thing. Sorry, go on. I interrupted them. I was just
No,
going to say
go on.
sometimes the obvious thing is the really hard thing to do, or it's obvious to you and me because we've been there, we've experienced it, and then actually, like it's like, oh yeah, of course this is obvious. Like I'm doing this thing, you're doing that thing. Like why isn't everyone else doing this thing? So, no, it's like test-driven development. Like for people who really enjoy it, who get the practice, yes, this is a really straightforward thing. Yeah, it's a bit of overhead. I've had the discussions before, and we've got TDD in the house because a really obvious thing, a really obvious practice that has very clear benefits.
Right.
Most people don't do TDD.
At least not right.
Like most people just don't do it,
Mm.
but it's quite clearly better. So you're like, so yeah. Sometimes the obvious thing is not.
Well, I mean, so you got to think about it. So TDD, if it's not being utilized, even though it's better, I wonder if it's because of like a time constraint. Like a lot of times it's been like that in shops that I've been. It's like, okay, we could do these tests, or we could do twice the amount of work. you know. So is that something like, and I guess this is not necessarily from a mentoring perspective, but more so from an engineering management perspective. Like, is that something that you end up having to balance a lot? Like, this may be the best way to do it. This may be the best process, but right now our goal is to put out, or is output.
Yeah.
So.
I'm going to pause this there. We're having a chat, not this room. There's another chat about the stream in another room. And someone just posted wired network as a GIF. I've had to minimize it because I actually couldn't breathe because I was trying to laugh so much. I mean, I'll post it in the chef Slack at some point. I don't know why someone's pouring gel over some wired cables. But Dan, you should definitely look at that channel. I just want to see if Dan can like not cry with laughter, basically. Let me go find it, guy, for you. It's I want to see if you'll laugh at it, because why? So, funnily enough, the person who posted this GIF is also a Dan.
Stop with all the
yeah, Dan, thanks very much for that.
Adam Macedo. So sorry, I got everyone sidetracked. He must be.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. Yeah, I'm just going to minimize that. It's yeah.
Oh wow!
Basically, we're all trying to tell Dan that he needs better Wi-Fi, and then for some reason Dan was like, "I need to post some cables." The weirdest GIF of a cable ever. If you can imagine something almost that looks not safe for work, but probably totally is. It's almost disgusting. Anyway,
all of his cars are green on this side. Weird.
It's beautiful. So I had a couple more questions. So one thing I think we've skirted around a little bit was, how was your journey with how, whilst you've been on the journey to becoming a tech leader, how has that affected how you approach problems day to day? Do you sort of try to step back a lot more, thinking, and like how does that affect you when you go back into engineering roles as well? So if because you're switching back from tech leadership to to management, tech leadership, and back and forwards? How does that kind of affected the way you do work? Oh no, his connection is actually bad this time. Yeah.
We lost him.
How much he's much better now. How much did you get?
Oh,
that?
How much did I get that? Basically nothing. So everything started going in slow motion, and then
oh, beautiful. So
I was trying to understand it, and then I realized I was like, wait, I've been listening to slow motion for like, you know, a couple of minutes now. I must be really far behind.
Wow. So I was kind of, it was sort of skipped around it a little bit. So as you've been moving between tech leadership and engineering, how has your sort of tech leadership hat affected the way you how has it affected the way you approach problems?
To be. So I think that, you know, not one of the things that I've realized is that not all problems need to be solved with technology. Often, you know, rather than writing a clever script, sometimes it's better to just go and talk to somebody, you know, or you know, having that kind of wider. Sometimes having a wider view of a problem can actually, you know, mean that you don't have to write code, and, you know, generally that's a good that's a better solution, you know, or can be. But I'm not sure I have a good answer to that one, to be honest. I think, you know,
I guess it almost sounds like it hasn't really affected you, which is quite interesting. So, like, when you've got your engineering hat on, you're going to be an engineer now, and when you've got your leadership hat on, you're like, well, I'm going to do leadership now. I'm going to try and put the tools away as much as possible, and I'm going to be doing the mentoring, and I'm going to do the leading of a team and the direction of stuff. So you're almost going to switch.
I think that my leadership style is somewhat hands-on as well. So, you know, one of the ways that I love, because one of the things that we mentioned is like, how do you kind of move past that dopamine, you know, reliance on the dopamine from solving, you know, technical problems. And you know, one part of that is to try and look at what are the what's the value that I'm delivering as part of this team. The other part is, you know, to actually incorporate the dopamine into your day-to-day, you know, as a leader. So rather than jumping onto a problem, you know, solo, work with people, you know, pair with people, mob. And, you know, that gives you a lot of input into, you know, what's actually working in this team and, you know, understanding that. So I think that, you know, you can actually, you know, have that leadership. You can do that leadership while your hands are on the keyboard. Do you know what I mean? And you also, I think it's really important, you know, not to be on the critical path as, you know, because you may be pulled off to some fire somewhere else, whatever it is. And you need to be, you know, you need to not then be blocking something that's, you know, needs to get done today. So
that's pretty cool. Like, trying not to be part of the value chain there. You're almost like I always use the term force multiplier. Like, I'm here to make you better at your job. I'm here to encourage you, to help you make the right decisions. If I can help you make the right decision by also coding, that's a win-win for both of you at that point, isn't it? Because you still get your dopamine hit.
Yeah.
And then you're like, cool, I can walk away. Also, not my code. So
right. So when you go back to blame.
Kind of coming back to sort of up to the hour mark now. So if you've got any viewers with any questions, drop them in the chat. And there's a couple of things that I haven't talked about that I know that's on my list. But if there's any viewers out there that got any questions to Dan or myself and Kaya as well, I'm happily go and do those. So just drop them in the chat, and we'll take a pause for a drink for a second as well. I've got one like off-topic question, I guess, is what's a song or band that you've got on repeat at the moment?
So I don't have Spotify Premium, so I have like 3 different bands and or 3 different things. So I don't have songs, but I have bands. Kooks, Eminem, and Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. I had a Red Hot Chili Peppers marathon the other day, and then there's a couple of albums, and I'm like, I need to like fast forward these albums because I'm getting depressed. They're just a bit too mellow, and I didn't need mellowing, so I'm just like, just change it up. But yeah,
nice.
So I was on someone's stream yesterday, and I was like realizing how much Disney I listen to now.
Oh yeah, because yeah.
I mean, it could be my excuse could be my son. It's not my son. It's not my son. I mean, like, it's Encanto. Like, my son's 1. He doesn't care about TV. He literally couldn't give a hoot if the TV was on.
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, right, awesome. And then just walks off. So yeah, the Encanto soundtrack was all me.
Yeah.
/ my wife, so it's fine.
You know.
Yeah.
You know what soundtrack I love? Have you all seen Hamilton?
No, actually. Have you seen it? Dan?
Oh my god!
Oh.
Watch it. Well, I guess it's like American history, so you're like, what?
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
Like,
but watch it. It's amazing. Okay. The whole thing from start to finish is amazing. Wow, you guys haven't seen Hamilton? Do it.
Can't believe it.
Let's
see if they've got any questions kicking around. I think there's some questions kicking around somewhere. I mean, maybe I should just post the GIF at this point because I feel like the GIF really sidetracked us. So one question I've got that I didn't ask earlier on, I think I can probably answer this now because I think we've kind of like the difference between individual contributor or senior engineer and leadership is the difference between actually like getting your hands dirty in code day to day. Like senior engineer is kind of like I've got enough engineering know-how, and I can do a little bit of mentoring and a little bit of guiding for people because all the good senior engineers I've met have got a really good talent at that actually.
Mm-hmm.
Like almost to an extent of I wish that was like part of every senior person's like their role is like you're an engineer and then you become a senior engineer, and then part of being a senior engineer is kind of is mentoring people.
So I'm just so there's a really interesting quote that I saw on one of the lead dev. I don't know if you know the conference lead dev. I was watching a talk, and they said, I've got it here in front of me. The difference between the management track and individual contributor track is not about whether you need to influence others. That's non-negotiable. It's about whether you influence horizontally upon your peers or vertically through the org hierarchy. So obviously, the manager track, that's about influence through the org hierarchy. You're working in that direction. And individual contributor, you need to be influencing horizontally. So you have no authority over those people, but you still need to influence them. I thought that was like quite a nice summary of the difference.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Some yeah, like influencing people is really, really hard. You've got to be in a particular position.
Well,
It looks like someone's been shadow banned in our chat somehow. I don't know what's going on. There we go. Thanks, Dan. So someone's been trying to post a message in our chat, in my chat, for about 10 minutes. I don't know what's going on. She's been typing away in my chat, and
Oh wow.
like I'm going to blame Jason because Jason used to work with her. So Jason's managed to shadow ban her somewhere. I don't know what's going on. It's
You're gonna like
really, really weird.
it's Jason
Thanks for
all the way
reposting that,
from
Dan.
Hong Kong.
Don't know. She's just posted me a screenshot of her talking in my chat. I've gone to my chat. There's nothing in there.
Yeah, and it didn't
How
show up
weird.
in this chat either. Isn't it supposed to show up in all of the chat?
Yeah. Well, if it shows up in my chat, it'll come up in the restream chat. So
Yeah.
super, super weird. So how do you reason around the differences between management and tech lead, and how would you approach the conversation with someone earlier in the career who might not know what to focus on? So like tech leadership or just going straight into management. So I guess we'll start with what are the differences between just management and tech leadership? I can
I'm
go
not
back and
sure.
start with that one.
I mean, I'd be interested. I'd be interested in what your guys' thoughts are on that because I'm not sure that I have a kind of well thought through answer on the difference between management and tech lead here. Like I guess this is kind of alluding to like a 3-track kind of career progression, right?
Yeah. I almost see it as like some companies have management who are people who are trained as managers, have like are your classical management type. They do performance reviews, 360s, that kind of stuff, and they do the fighting for their team in the team's corner. They don't do any technical stuff. Is how I can see
Right.
managers. Like classically, managers are just management. Middle management are kind of that sandwich to help the team perform well. Sometimes getting them the right training, fighting for the budget for them, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But tech leads for me are like they almost have like I've been in these pits. I know what they look like, and they're cool. But stop making my mistakes. It's almost like the dad of the family, or the mum and the dad in the family. Like, look, like all you kids, go off and write some code, um, and I will help you swim down this pool. It's cool.
Mhm.
Like I can come and help you swim, and I know how to swim because I've done the swimming before. It's not like I've read a book about swimming. I can swim. It's all cool.
Right.
So I can
Exactly.
teach you how to swim better. I can teach you how to swim faster. I won't let you drown. You might occasionally get like water in your face, and it will be funny. And it's okay.
Hmm.
But like tech leadership's kind of like almost like the more mentoring kind of thing from a technical and professional perspective. Whereas a management is kind of like, hey, I want to help you reach your career goals. It's
True.
almost more of a pure like classical management. You would say, I think.
And and I also would like to add to that because even sometimes I've learned that sometimes a pure manager in a tech role will have technical experience, but they're how every 18 months, or I mean it might even be shorter now, that things change. You don't really keep your knife sharp. You have other
Yeah.
um focuses, and you really kind of take on the role of the leadership from a managerial perspective, like Dan said, but also, I mean, well, and on the other hand, um, the tech lead is going to stay abreast of all of the bleeding edge technology that they at least that the company or the team uses, and they're able to be able to mentor from a space of knowledge of the technology versus simply a career perspective.
Yeah. Oh, I can tell it's coming up to the hour because my ability to concentrate on anything right now is almost becoming zero. I think we've got one more question to finish up our hour. So Dan in chat, so not any of us. Also to reinforce, would it fit on the screen? Because there's a nice monologue here. To reinforce my experience as an engineering manager, I've focused a lot on the personal and professional growth of my team, ensuring the team's work is meaningful and impactful. So that's always nice, like getting in to do the things that they'll enjoy and they'll have the most impact at the end of the day. I guess it's like how do I get this team to get their dopamine hit to finish the thing, but also stay around? Because if you're completing tickets, but you feel like you're not having any impact on the way that the product's moving forward, then what's the point in this?
Right.
Coaching, mentoring, ensuring goals are aligned to company strategy. There we go. I got Dan's managed to give us a simpler question. Do you agree with the difference from a tech lead focusing on the doing? So yeah, do you agree that tech leads are like they focus on doing things and getting people to do things?
If that's focusing on the doing as opposed to the mentoring and like aligning things to company strategy, I don't think I agree. Like, I think that the tech lead should be focused on the company strategy, on building human relationships and trust and communicating with other teams and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I don't think I quite see the difference between the two roles, and I think that was the problem with the early,
right. Yeah.
On the earlier question.
It's really interesting.
In some ways, I think when you look at accountancy firms, right? They're run by accountants. Insurance companies are run by actuaries. Law firms are run by lawyers, and like tech firms are run by lawyers and accountants. A lot of the time that
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I think that's wrong, right? I think that it should be, that tech firms should have technical people right the way through them. So if you're building a technical product, you should have people right up the tree at every level who understand technology, fundamentally, not just not just at a kind of very fuzzy level.
I think that like speaks to the whole you ship your culture, you ship your organizational structure as well. So
yes.
So HMRC in this country, if you look at each of the government departments, they act like they are. So HMRC act like a finance firm. The way they do business, because they're a government department. The way they hire people, the way they retain people, the way they look at like large, like they invest in things. They very much look at the financial impact of that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you look at the DWP and the Department of Work and Pensions, they think about the people. Like, these are the services we provide. These are the kind of people we want to hire. So you end up hiring those kind of people. So your structure looks like that. So you end up shipping that culture, and it's super interesting. I think, like a tech company. So if you've got a lawyer at the top or a finance person at the top, you've then got to convince a lawyer or a finance person that this bit of software, they have no idea how to write software, like, is the correct thing to write. Or, hey, like, we need to hire 5 more engineers. And would you agree with this statement, Dan, that if you've got if you're trying to convince an engineer that this piece of thing is hard, it's easier to get them on board if they're like CTO and they've been through the technical ladders. They understand how it all works, and like they can understand that sometimes hard problems are just hard and you need more people. Whereas the finance person will go, yeah, that's a lot of money. No.
Yeah, although I'd add one caveat, which is like the CEO who wrote some COBOL in the 70s.
Yeah, oh yeah, I've had that one.
There you go. Like, so
it's Pascal, actually. Sorry.
Exactly. No, like that's a real thing because people love to, I mean, you're not discounting that experience, but it's not necessarily relevant in this scope.
Right.
You know? So that
I
becomes
kind
a
of like,
challenge.
I kind of like almost full circle there, and I think like the tech lead, having a tech lead who can still code, still does code, is
Right.
really helpful because you still keep refreshing your skills on a regular basis. You're looking at other, you're looking at the landscape differently, getting slightly different skill sets in, so you can help people, but you still want to be technical and understand how technical problems actually work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't understand how technical problems can get fixed, then you're suddenly less valuable to the people underneath you. I think. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I so charity majors. I don't know if it was just. I don't know. I think it was a blog post I read from her. It was like, to stay relevant, you need to stay technical. But
Yeah.
to have the impact that you might want to have, or the career that you want to have, you might need to go into management. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a one way path. And if you choose to go back into tech hands on every day, that also doesn't have to be a one way path. And she made a recommendation, of 2-year cycles. 2 years in management, 2 years in tech, and then you can just spend the rest of your life bouncing between those. And or do whatever makes you happy. I guess would be the best
Oh
recommendation.
right, yeah.
Is
I think
that
I
the formula?
so
Okay.
God, who is it? It was Mitchell Hashimoto. He was CTO of HashiCorp, and he's gone back down to individual contributor, back down as much as he'll ever like. He's a founder of the company. I imagine he's still getting paid a reasonable amount of money, but like, he wants to get back. He wants to get his hands dirty. He wants to like reform those skills because I'm assuming from his perspective, he was going further and further away from the building of the tools, and that's what got him into doing it in the first place. That's what he enjoyed,
Yeah.
and that's how he could upskill people. And he's been away from that, and he's slowly, almost like unnoticeably slow, gone into like CTO level because HashiCorp has just grown over the last 2 to 3 years enormously. Their growth rates mind blowing, to be honest.
Nice.
Over COVID, which is pretty cool. Can you remember what the article was called, Dan? Was it called "How Engineering Driven Leads to Engineering Supremacy"?
I can't. It was a long time ago that I read it. So
Oh, a long time ago. This was only posted in January, so let's see if we can find the. So it's on this blog somewhere. So it's charity.wtf. Charity likes to swear, and that's why I like Charity. She's brilliant. Yeah, I recommend going on there. Charity's blog posts in general are lengthy but very, very insightful. So if you've got 10 minutes, half an hour to read and try to really digest them, they're always worth reading if you've got the time, which is pretty cool.
Sweet.
Brilliant. I think we'll wrap it up there because we're already 15 minutes late for this meeting. It's all cool. We were way more enjoying Dan's company than the meeting.
These hallway track sessions really, are a joy. They really are. Really, I like chatting with new folks and getting different perspectives. That's what this job is about. I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
it's
something for the community.
massive thanks for joining us today, Dan. That was getting an insight into doing technical leadership is really, really cool because some of us have thought about it, some of us have done it, and like seeing how hard it is actually quite nice for people getting some perspective of actually technical leadership is just not for everybody at all, and that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for having me on. It's been really good fun.
Thanks very much. And hopefully, I didn't even get to talk about Brum.js and some of the other stuff, other meetups you run. Hopefully, I'll get along to one of those one day.
Yeah, we're. Just in case anybody is Birmingham, 31st of March is the next Brum.js. So free food, free beer, and some interesting talks. Yeah, so come along.
Nice.
Very
Yes. Yay for in-person events again.
Yes. Yes. Right.
Cool.
I'm going to wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us today, Dan. And take it easy, everybody.
Cheers. Bye.